Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Rick Fussell and this is the Ingrain Workshop. A couple of weeks ago I built a miter saw station, and in this video we're going to be building a flip stop block for that miter saw station. That's coming up next here at the Ingrain Workshop. Okay, so to start this project, I'm going to use some scrap hardwood that I had left over from my miter saw build. And this was the actual cherry edge banding that I'd used. So I'm going to take and glue up two rough blocks, roughly 2 inches by 3 inches. Now these are slightly oversized because I'm going to trim them down to their final lengths and widths once I've got the blocks glued up. But these are 3/4 of an inch thick. And I need the actual block to be 1 inch thick, so I'm going to have to glue two of them together. I'm making two blocks simultaneously, one for the left side and one for the right side of the miter saw station. So once I get them glued up, I'm just going to clamp them, let them set up overnight, and then I'll take and trim them to their final lengths and widths, which are 2 by 3 inches. The last thing I need to do is rip the block down to a 1 inch depth, and that's going to be the thickness of my block is 1 inch deep, 2 inches wide by 3 inches long, and I've got this setup block just to compare it to it. So the groove inside of my T-track is exactly 5/16 of an inch. So using a setup block, that's what I set my table saw fence at, and then using some cherry, I'm going to take and cut a 5/16 inch groove out of the cherry, and this is what I'm going to use. This portion will slide within the T-track. So I've laid out the groove location on my actual stop block, and it's going to sit right directly in the center of the stop block. And next thing I'm going to have to do is just cut a dado, and I'm just going to use my 1/8 inch blade here at the table saw to make that dado cut, and just keep test fitting it until the groove fits snug within that dado. Next, I'm going to jump over to the miter saw and cut down the groove pieces. Because I can't have a solid groove throughout the entire stop block, I need an open space in the middle so the actual T-bolt will fit in there. So I'm just going to rough cut these down to a couple of inches, and then I'll trim or finish the cut once I get those glued into the actual stop block. So the spacing is going to vary depending on the T-stop or the star knob, whatever T-bolt you're using. Mine is 5/16, so I'm just going to use a 5/16 inch setup block to find the center, and then to use it as a positive reference so I can make sure that I've got the correct opening. And then I'm going to take my two groove pieces and glue those inside the dado that I had previously cut inside the stop. And then I'll put the setup block in there just to make sure I've got the proper spacing. And then once the glue sets up, then I'll trim the groove pieces on the sides of the stop. So before the glue really set up, I took the bolt out of my star knob and just using the hex head just to make sure that it fit properly and there was enough space in the groove for it to fit. So the next thing we're going to do is drill out the hole for these bolts. So we're going to go over to my drill press and using a 5/16 inch bit. I believe I used a brad point bit here. We're just going to drill a hole straight through the stop block. And I am using a scrap piece of plywood on the back side just so it doesn't blow out the back side of the block. So with the edge of the stop block lined up with my zero clearance insert and fence here at the miter saw, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the excess groove on both sides of the stop blocks. So while I'm here at the miter saw, I'm just going to throw one up here in the T-track and make sure that it fits and moves very smoothly. For the flip portion of the stop block, I'm using 1/8 inch thick by 1 inch wide aluminum, just flat stock aluminum. And you can see here, I'm going to cut it to a length of about 5 inches. And I'm doing this over at my old miter saw with an old miter saw blade in it. Now, if one blade's all you got, that's all you've got. But, I always like to use an old blade. But Your miter saw or table saw should be able to cut through the aluminum with no problem and will not damage the blade or your equipment. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 flip stops here at 5 inches. Using a 1-inch circle template here, I'm going to take and cut a 1-inch radius on one side of the flip stop. Now I went ahead and taped them together that way that the two would be uniform. On the opposite side, I'm just going to round the actual corners just to smooth them up so they won't be as sharp. So those might be, an 1/8 inch radius, but I'm not going to use a template to mark that out. I'll just sand that out over at the belt sander. So there's my 1 inch or 1/2 inch radius. So over here at the oscillating belt sander, I'm just going to go ahead and sand the profiles that I wanted on the flip stop. And again, on this end, I'm just going to round over basically the corners. They might be a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch radius. And then on the other end of the flip stop, that will be a 1/2 inch radius. And once you're done, that's what the profile should look like on your flip stops. Back over at the drill press, I'm going to take and drill a 5/16 inch hole on the 1/2 inch radius side of the flip stop. And again, I still have both flip stops taped together, so I'll just drill this hole in both of them simultaneously. And again, that's a 5/16 inch hole on the 1/2 inch radius side of the flip stop. Next, I've got to drill a 5/16 inch hole through the long side of the stop block. And what I've done is I've centered this hole on one side of the block, but it is directly, at a 1/2 inch since the block is 1 inch thick. It's marked at a 1/2 inch, and then it's halfway between the actual groove and the end of the block. And this is where I'm going to install a 5/16 inch round all thread rod all the way through the stop, and that's what's going to hinge the actual flip stop, the aluminum flip stop. So it's back over to the old miter saw, and I'm going to take and cut my 5/16 of an inch all thread to a length of about 6 inches. That's going to leave me a 1/2 inch overhang on both sides of the stop block. Next thing I'm going to do is apply 2 coats of this high gloss lacquer to the actual stop blocks. With the lacquer dry now, I can install the flip stop portion. So what I did is I used an actual washer and a lock nut to fasten the flip stop on one end of the all thread. Then I placed the all thread through the stop block and then put a lock washer and a lock nut on the opposite end, and then I'll tighten both sides. Now, this is just personal preference. You want it tight, but you also want to be able to easily lift the flip stop up and down. So again, it's just personal preference on how tight you want to tighten it here. Next, I'm going to use some 1¼ inch flat washers, and this is just to put on top of the stop block, and this is what the actual star knob will be compressed against. That way it doesn't put an indentation on your actual stop block. Then using the 5/8 inch or 5/16 inch T-bolt, I'm going to go ahead and insert that and then insert the star knob. And then once I get both of them inserted, they'll be ready to insert inside the T-track. And then you can see here on the bottom the actual bolts for the star knobs. And you can also see that I didn't finish the bottom of these. I don't know if this would make a big difference or not. Okay, so before I install my stop blocks, I'm going to go ahead and lay out some tape. I went ahead and wiped down my countertops with mineral spirits just to clean it so the adhesive on the tape would stick better. I'm going to stick this directly to the Formica top. I don't have a groove cut in for the tape or anything like that. I do have 2 types of tape. They're both from Craig, and I'll leave links in the video description below. They're both 12 feet long, but one is a left reed and one is a right reed. So one will go on the left-hand side of the miter saw, and then the smaller one will go to the right-hand side. So I went ahead and cut a piece of scrap plywood exactly 30 inches, And then I've laid it out on my countertop and marked it on top of the T-track, so I know exactly where my 30-inch measurement needs to be on both the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So now I'll lay out my tape, get it as close as I can to that mark, and then I'll take the adhesive off and apply the tape to the actual miter saw tabletop. So here are the Craig measuring tapes. Like I'd mentioned, they come in 12-foot lengths, and then one's a left-hand read and one's a right-hand read. I think on the right-hand side of the miter saw, let me go ahead and orientate it in the right direction. On the right-hand side, I've got 5-foot cutting capacity, and then on the left-hand side, I believe I have an 8-foot cutting capacity. So these tapes will need to be cut down to the proper lengths. So just using a pair of scissors, I went ahead and cut down the actual tape to the length that I need for the right side of the miter saw, which I had mentioned previously was around 5 feet. And now I'm just going to take some painter's tape just to keep it in the correct position. And again, I've marked on the actual T-track my 30-inch mark, and that's a 30-inch cut from the right side of the miter saw, and that's where I've got it set up. So once I get the painter's tape down and get it in the approximate location, I'm going to actually install the stop block and use that to actually hold down the tape while I go ahead and peel off the back, and then I'll stick it from the left side of the stop block, and then I'll take and work my way on the opposite side of the stop block. And if you just take your time as you're taking off the backing of the tape, you shouldn't have any trouble, because this is a steel tape, so it's very stiff, and it's, once you get it lined up, it pretty much goes down fairly easy and in line with the actual T-track. With the tape installed, I'm just going to come over here to my stop, loosen it up, and just see how easily or how smooth it slides up and down the T-track, and just to make sure that the tape's not going to get hung up on anything, which it doesn't. And you can see how easily the stop just slides up and down the T-track. And you'll also notice too that I've got my T-track set behind my fence, so you don't have to move the stop. The stop can stay in place, and you can make cuts, and it doesn't get in the way. So now I'll just repeat the process on the left side of the miter saw. I went ahead and installed the tape at the 30-inch mark that I had made on the T-track, and now I'm just going to install the stop, and that should lock the tape down and keep it in the proper position. And then just using a pair of scissors, I'm going to trim the 12-foot tape down to 8 foot, I believe is my cutting capacity on this side of the miter saw. And then I'll just peel off the backing and work my way to the stop, and then work my way on the other side of the stop, and just repeat the process. So with both sides installed, this is the final product and kind of how it turned out. As you can see here, I've got the 8-foot cutting capacity on the left-hand side, and then I've got the 5 foot on the right-hand side, which I think averages out real nice. And you can see here with the stop block on the right-hand side, your material clears the stop with no problem. And then the same thing on the left-hand side. So I really like the way this is designed. That way you don't have to take your stops on and off when you are trying to cut pieces where you're not using the stop. I think the flip stop is a real nice alternative to your traditional type of stops. So what I'm going to do now with it set at the, I'm going to go ahead and set it up at the 30-inch increment, and then just do a test cut to make sure that I've got it all dialed in. Now I went ahead and made the micro adjustments when I was putting in the tape, so it should be dead on. But I am going to do a test cut here just to make sure that it is spot on. And as you can see here from the test cut, it is exactly at 30 inches, which is where I want it. So I think I'm dialed in and ready to go and can really start using this miter saw station. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, then please leave it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you like DIY and woodworking projects, then I highly recommend that you smash that subscribe button. It's free and painless, and I'd also ask that you click on that bell icon. That way you'll be notified of all our upcoming videos. To all you existing subscribers out there, I really appreciate all the support you've given this channel. Now I'll leave links in the video description below to where you can get all the material for this build. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments section below. I'm Rick with the Ingrain Workshop. Until next time, have a wonderful day and God bless.